Just be great. Don't be mediocre, okay? Mediocre people don't get promoted.
What would happen if we just told the truth?
Welcome to TruthWorks, where we dig into the nitty-gritty of leadership and work.
And what needs to change. I'm Jessica Neal.
And I'm Patty McCord.
Our journey together started in HR, but trust us, it's evolved into something wild, honest, and well, a bit rebellious.
So throw out the handbook. We're here to redefine rules to work for us, not against us.
Let's dive into another episode. Hey, Patty.
Hi, Jessica. So today I was thinking about the possible subject matter for today. And we had originally talked about career pathing. And you and I both went, we hate that subject. I think mostly because neither one of us really believe in it.
Yeah.
Just the notion of a career path just strikes me as crazy. And personal for me, because like every great thing that ever happened to me just came totally out of left field.
I know.
And some of my biggest career achievements, so this is a good segue into some of the questions, came because nobody else wanted to do it.
Right.
Right. It's like, oh, this is so screwed up. I know Patty will do it. Right. I was either new or, in trouble for something, because I was always in trouble for something. But I ended up and sometimes like being the star in an unlovable job.
Yeah.
Turns out
to like, wow, they did that. Nobody has done that. Nobody ever did that because they didn't care about it.
Yeah. So I was thinking that maybe we could talk about, instead of talking about career paths, I used to tell people, they would say, how do I think about a career path here? And I would say, we don't have them, but we can give you a topo map. Do you know what a topo map is?
I don't think I know what a topo map.
A topo map is, I learned from Neil Hunt, who used to be our head of practice. A topo map is a topographical map of wherever you are. They do them in ski resorts and stuff. This is how high the mountain is. That's how low it is. And I'd say, no, I can give you a topo map and say, you are here.
Yeah.
Right. And I can tell you, I can introduce you to somebody who got on the other side of the mountain range.
Yeah.
But that's how they did it. And so like, I don't know if you're going to be like hand over hand climbing on a rock, if you're going to take a canoe down a river, if you're going to get on a device that flies you. I have no clue how you get there. I can tell you where we're going.
Yeah.
But let's go back to the whole idea about some of the questions.
Yeah, I know. Do you want to read the first one?
Yeah. Is it wrong to feel like I want to take a step back down the career ladder? I love this question.
Yeah.
I've always been super career driven, chasing promotion after promotion. But now after 6 months in the most senior role I've ever held, I feel like I was much more content in my previous role, which reports to this one. I don't know if I'm still just a bit intimidated by the new responsibilities, or if realistically I'm just as suited to this level, but I think it's too late to go back down. I love the company and my team, and I just regret leaving my last role.
Oh, gosh. This is such a good one.
It is such a good one.
And you and I saw this like play out many times, right? I think being that self-aware to know what you love and what you don't love is a really good thing.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that you necessarily need to go take a step back down. Maybe you do, right? But if you really love it, right? And you're more suited for it. I think we put employees, I should say, in these situations where they feel like they have to do these things or they're not going to grow. Right. Then they're not going to make more money if they don't take the promotion. They're not going to, get to the next level. They're not going to have a seat at the table. They're not going to have, all the things. And I think
get to go to all the meetings.
Yeah. And we train people to do that. And then, you get in that bigger role and it's not that fun. Right.
Or I think what we also saw a lot of, and happens all the time, is the best individual contributor gets promoted to manager.
Yeah. Oh, it happens all the time.
Oftentimes, the best individual contributor is that because they love the nuts and bolts of the work that they're doing. Right. And it's sometimes, particularly in startups, it's naivete on the parts of the people that promote them,
Mhm.
because the job of management isn't to be the best at the job of the individual contributor.
Yep.
And I have two things to say about this particular person. One of them is 6 months in is cold feet, right? 6 months in is when you realize, oh shit, I didn't know what I was getting into. Now my whole life is taken up with meetings. Now I have to deal with everybody's personal problems. Now I got to figure out what the whole team's going to do, and I only used to have to figure out me. Now I'm responsible for it. Like, if they screw up, it's my fault.
Yep.
Like, it never occurs to people.
No.
Ever
No.
that as a manager, that shit rolls uphill.
Yep.
Right. It just doesn't occur to you that, like, if you hire the wrong team and they don't do the right stuff, then nobody's going to blame it on them. They're going to blame it on you.
Yeah.
The second part is, should you hire the right team and they are amazing and they accomplish it all, then you have to give all the credit to them.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Right. Because so you don't get any, you get stuck with the terrible part. And so there's that part, which is 6 months in, you're like, man, this is not what I signed up for. I want to go back to where I was happy and successful and things were going well.
Well, yeah.
And I would
Doing
I would
something that you
say,
love.
yeah, and I would say at 6 months in, you might want to just go back to the team and go, how is it going for you?
Well, it's interesting because as you were talking, I was just thinking, I was having a conversation with this founder, and, he's doing some work that's with the team, and he's not interested in it. It kind of has to do it. And he doesn't like it. And he's like, it's probably not good for them either. And I was like, probably not. Like, yes, definitely not.
Yeah. Good job.
Right.
Good job being so self-observant.
Yeah. But
right.
Because again, when your heart's not in something, everybody feels it. Right. And when you're going through the motions, everybody knows you're just going through the motions.
Yeah. I worked at a company once where we had a technical sort of ladder thing that if the technologist got promoted to manager, it was kind of a no harm, no foul situation. The sort of structure that we had in place was 6 months in, we'd go back to the team and go, how is it going? And if they're like, I used to love working, side by side with this guy. Now I hate him.
Oh, yeah.
Because he's the world's worst manager. then we would let them go back and say no harm, no foul.
Yeah. I think that's a good thing for companies to think about, because to your point, we always want to promote the person that's the best at the craft, but the person that's the best at the craft generally isn't the best at leading the team.
The secret to being a great manager is to have other people do their most amazing work with a smile on their face and a song in their heart, even when they don't want to.
Yeah.
And that's what great leaders can inspire other people to do.
Mm-hmm.
And how they do that is they have incredible clarity about what needs to get done and when it needs to get done and what goodness looks like, so that everybody on the team feels like they're pulling for the team.
Mm-hmm.
That is very often not what we promote people for. Right. We promote them because they're charismatic in meetings. We promote them because they're the first to the plate. We promote them because everybody likes them.
Right.
Right. And not necessarily. And that's another, like, one of those, but everybody loves me. I'm like, I know everybody is loving you, but you're not getting anything done.
Right. No, I think that's a really good point, because again, going back to, like, you're promoting, I generally think businesses promote because they think someone's excelling in their area. Right.
Yep.
And also the team likes them, and also they're charismatic, and they say, okay, I think this person can be a good leader. But I think to the point that you were making about this no harm, no foul thing, is that if that's what we're doing, because it is, right?
Yeah.
Because you think that they're going to be the best leader. I think having a no harm, no foul kind of policy, because we now have learned, and I think we continue to ignore what we've learned about the people who are great at their craft. Some of them just love the craft.
Yeah,
right?
that's
and
right.
they don't want to be a manager. And also they're not good at it. And so let them gracefully go back and celebrate that.
And pay them for it.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's the other part
Yeah.
is that sort of difference, there's the other thing that happens a lot is people get promoted by the size of their org chart.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, you're only as I always say, hold it up in front of you. It's like, I got a really big org chart. That triangle underneath me is really huge. Right.
Right.
And that may or may not be a factor in success and moving up the ladder, but that's what we typically reward.
It is.
Find somebody that you admire that's successful in your organization and observe them.
Mm-hmm.
Just watch. Watch what they do under stress,
Mm-hmm.
right? How they deal with other people. Watch when they raise their hand and have a comment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Watch when that person does the job that nobody else wants to do, right? Watch when they let their team take credit
Mm-hmm.
for something. It's like all those little details. And then a third piece of advice is when you find those two, and it doesn't have to be a one-on-one mentor, it can be just people that you observe.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure that you're imprinting on somebody who's a little more like you,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, if you are introverted and quiet, and you don't say much and you don't always loud and articulate, you think I'll never be a leader because that's what leaders do. The truth is that's not true.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you and I have been witness to some amazing leaders who didn't talk much, but when they did, man, we listened.
It mattered. Yeah, it mattered. The episode you missed last week with Dr. Bernard Harris, he said something that resonated with me. And it was like, leave it better than how you found it.
Oh, what great advice.
Right. And I think like no matter what you're doing, right,
Yep.
out there and you want things, and this is outside of the advice that you're giving of talking to people, observing.
Yep.
If you have the mindset of leaving whatever you're working on better than how you found it, that's going to lead to a lot of really great things. No matter
Yes,
whether
it
it's a
is.
project, no matter whether it's a team, no matter whether it's a one-on-one, like the mindset of like, I'm going to leave this better than I found it. And guess what? It's going to be better and that's going to pay off for you.
God, that is
You
the
missed out. It
best.
was so good.
That is the best advice, and it's such a good way to say it.
Yeah.
Right? Which is like, I remember saying to people, just be great.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, don't be mediocre, okay? Mediocre people don't get promoted. Like,
Yeah.
okay, be amazing. Solve a problem that needs to be solved. I mean, we had a person that we both know, and I used to call him our unfucker.
Who?
and it was Kevin.
Oh,
And whenever
good.
there was a problem, I'm like, oh, God, what are we going to do about this? Such a
Call
mess.
Kevin.
And nobody's looked at it for years. And I'm like, I know. Call Kevin.
Yeah.
He's the unfucker. And what he could do was he could take a gnarly, hairy, complicated, screwed up mess and put it in a long line of accomplishments.
Mm-hmm.
And he was really good at going,
He was fantastic.
What step 1 to 10,
Yeah.
step 2, yay, right? Step 3, yay. And everybody else is like, it's too hard. We can't, we have to throw the whole thing out.
But he never thought about it that way. And I bet you kind of thought about it the way that Dr. Bernard Harris said, was like to leave it better than he found it. And it wasn't about ego and it wasn't about himself. And he got promoted because he did that.
Yeah.
Okay, should we go to the next question?
Sure.
Okay, I feel pigeonholed in my company, but I'm scared of the risk of starting all over again. In the past year or so, I've missed out on 2 openings higher than me in the company. One was directly above me and the other was in an adjacent team. From the feedback I got, it seems like the successful candidates just had slightly more experience than me, but I'm left feeling underestimated and undervalued. I've seen similar positions at our competitor companies, but it feels like a betrayal to apply. Do I owe my company loyalty or should I jump ship if I feel limited?
Oh, my favorite, right?
Yeah, you love this,
I love this one. Okay. So your company isn't your spouse.
right?
You didn't marry them in front of your friends and family. You didn't agree to spend the rest of your lives together until death do you part, right?
Right.
So if you interview at another company, you are not betraying anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Work with me on that. It is not a betrayal
Not.
to interview at another company. And in fact, for this person, the first thing I advise you to do is that.
Yeah.
Because when you talk to a perfect stranger and they ask you what you're good at and what you're not good at, what you want to do and what you don't want to do, you can tell them the truth.
Yeah. Well, I think the other thing, and we've talked about this on the show, whether it's various questions that we've gotten that are similar to this, but when you go off and you do interview, you will either get those jobs or you won't. Right. And I think that that will be very telling for you in terms of how your company's viewing you, whether or not
Yep.
they're truly underestimating you or undervaluing you. Or are they valuing you correctly? Because at the competitor for the same job, let's say you don't get it. Right. So
Mhm.
maybe they aren't undervaluing you. Maybe you're just not ready. Or maybe you do get it and maybe they are. Right. But
Mhm.
I think
Mhm.
about when I left Netflix, it was less about getting promotions and not being valued. I was extremely valued. But I was like, okay, I want more. Right. And I want to go be a CHRO and I want to go learn how to do that. And I took a year to just talk to companies, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
in that year, I learned a ton about myself. There were a lot of opportunities that I got that I were like, don't want that one.
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm.
there were some that I probably didn't get. After a year, there was one that I really wanted, and I ended up
Mhm.
leaving for this role. And it was a bittersweet moment because I was getting this thing that I wanted, but at the same time, I was leaving a company that I loved. Like I
Mhm.
loved the company. And I remember getting in my car, on my last day and leaving and just bawling my eyes out, because I loved all the people. I loved the work. I loved the company. I was so passionate about it. I had helped build it. And I was just, driving off, looking at it in the rear view mirror. So I think, you also have to pay attention to what you love and who you work with and who you work for. Right.
Yeah. And sometimes that comfortable, happy feeling, it's okay to leave it behind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. I mean, I'm thinking about I used to use that a metaphor of looking in the rearview mirror, and mine was different.
Uh-huh.
I remember driving away from a company that I had left, and I was thinking, man, I never want to do that
Were you
again.
holding up the middle finger?
Well, it was a company, yeah, where it was like, oh, we called people head count, and it was like they were just numerals, right?
Right. Like an asset.
And the CEO would say, move head count down 20%, just like get rid of those people. We don't need them anymore. I mean,
Right.
it was just sort of
Yucky.
like it didn't matter, right? It
Right.
was just a numbers game to him without a thought of like who was doing what, how you were thinking about it. It was just let him go. And I was like, I never want to work in a company that does that treats people like numbers. And I didn't ever do that again.
Right.
Right. Because I knew what it looked like.
Mhm.
Right. I didn't want to work for a boss who was always trying to fix me.
Right.
Right. So, I mean, there's as much about learning what it's a question. It's my favorite interview question. Tell me what you don't ever want to do again.
Yeah. I love that
Right.
question.
Don't give me your dreams. Give me
Yeah.
your
Yeah. What do you not
if
want
I
to do?
never have to do this again, as long as I live, I'll be fine. And we've all got something,
We
right?
sure do.
We all and it's okay.
Yeah, it is. It is okay.
And I have asked that question to people who say, I never want to manage again.
Yeah.
Right. I tried it. I suck at it. Don't want to do it. I love my craft. That's what I want to do.
Yeah.
I want to make a big difference in terms of that. And so, and I think you said something earlier that really, really matters is a self-awareness.
Yes. I was just going to talk about that because I think Do you remember William Vanderbloemen? We had on the show. He had the agency and he had the 12 habits of
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
unicorn people.
Yeah, yeah.
The number one was self-aware.
Uh-huh.
And not all of us are all that self-aware. And I think that when you go off and interview, you become a lot more self-aware of your strengths, of your
Yeah.
weaknesses.
Yeah. I mean, I personally think it's one of the best things you can do and that you should do a couple of times a year, no matter how happy you
Yeah.
are. For one thing, you meet other really interesting people. I have recruited a couple of people
Yeah.
I've interviewed with
Yeah, of
before.
course.
But you also it's like the mirror, right? You get to look at yourself in the mirror and occasionally you're like, wow, I thought I had it good, but that's great. Or just as often, it's like, this company that I'm working at that I thought really sucked, it's,
It actually doesn't suck.
there are suckier.
Believe me, the grass is not always
The
greener.
grass is
and it's
not always greener.
Patty, do you want to read the last one?
I'm in my 50s and I've been in my field for a long time, but I've never really had a leadership role. Lately, I've been thinking about stepping into one. Any advice on how to make the move at this stage? What should I watch out for? Do I need to look at doing a course like an MBA to make myself more appealing to a recruiter? Sure. If your goal is to be more appealing to a recruiter.
Right.
And you're probably right. An MBA on your resume makes you more appealing to a recruiter and to many companies more appealing as somebody who's a manager. I think MBAs are wonderful things, I think. And here's what you learn in an MBA that really matters. You learn the holistic view of a company.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You learn something about how the finances work and how the products work and how the supply chain works and how the customer and the competition works. And you are exposed to an overview of the entirety of an organization.
Mm-hmm.
And as a leader, that is really, really helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Because the other thing is that sometimes, if you move through your career and you're just the best at whatever team you came from, and that's all you care about, then once you get to an executive level, you're not really as useful anymore because now you need to decide, okay, what is the most effective budgeting process for a multinational organization with 50,000 people, right? And that is not a finance question.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, that's not like, oh, well, I'm really, really, really good at spreadsheets, so I'll be able to figure this out. I mean, that might be the tool that you use to figure it out, but it's the knowledge of the organization holistically. And I would say that as a 50-year-old in work life, you've probably seen a lot.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I was going to say that, as reading this, that they've been in their field for a long time. And if that's true, then you are sort of an expert, right? And if you can take
if you've paid attention.
Yeah.
If you've been paying attention, you've seen a lot, right?
And my assumption is if they've been doing it for a long time, they have seen a lot and they've done a lot. And that's probably really great for a leadership role, right?
Yep.
And, one question that I just have is like, why they haven't gotten one yet.
Exactly. That was going to be my same one. It was just like, and all of a sudden.
Right.
Right. Did you feel like, the train left and you're still at the station? And that analogy might be absolutely true.
Yeah. Or maybe everybody thinks you're very great at what you do in the field and they want you to keep doing that. Right.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
That was a little confusing to me, but to your point, I think an MBA could help.
Yeah.
But I think that they really need to think about all the stuff that they know and that they've learned and what that is going to help them be as a leader, right? Because all of this, that's additive, but also what do you have in your skill set and your toolbox, whatever you want to call it, that would actually make you a great leader, right?
And again, I would prescribe my methodology again, right? Which is find somebody in your organization who's very successful, who has an MBA.
Yeah.
And say, how do you think that helped you in your career?
Yeah.
Right. don't get me wrong. I mean, there are companies, organizations, and hiring managers who absolutely love the letters after your name, right?
Yeah.
And they give incredible credence to it, usually because they have it too. And the self-aware leader who hires other people who have the same letters after their name say, I want to hire somebody with an MBA because my experience was that that gave me the ability to see things differently than I would have if I didn't have that degree.
Right.
Right. But there is still incredible bias. There are organizations that your MBA only counts if it's from Stanford or Harvard or right.
True.
And so it doesn't matter if you go to your local college
Yeah.
and get it, if
No.
you go to your state college and you get an
They're like,
MBA,
great.
there are organizations and people who are going to be like, well, that doesn't count. So
Yeah.
you wasted all that time. You never waste time. I take
Well,
that back.
yeah.
Well,
I mean, I think it's your point is maybe it's not wasted time because they learned something in the MBA, but it didn't help them achieve what they wanted to achieve.
Yeah, I mean, and I guess for this particular person, I would do that. I mean, I would just spend some time with some reflection, going back and saying, okay, over my life and my career, how have I progressed, right? How many of the moves or changes were things that I went for, and how many of them were things where they went for me?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Right. Because that's the other thing that happens behind closed doors, the story that we just talked about. Jessica, yeah, you're right. Jessica, she'd be pretty good at this.
Yeah.
And then I go to Jessica and go, hey, by the way, we were talking at executive team meeting the other day and we were thinking about this role that we think you'd be good for. And you could be like, really? I never thought of that. Yeah. Right. And you would want to be able to say, yeah, because here's a couple of situations where we kind of threw you in cold and you did a great job.
Right.
So,
right.
I remember also coaching another company one time where this was when I was at Warby Parker, right? And they were going to go, they're going to do brick and mortar stores, which of course at the time I thought was ludicrous.
Right.
And they had a person that they were going to put in charge of it. And I looked at his resume and I was like, there's no way. I mean, no. This person has no retail experience, blah, 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 blah. So I interview him and I come back to the leaders at the end of the team and I'm like, okay, well, here's the deal. If you hire somebody from the Gap, they're going to build a bunch of Warby Parker stores that are like Gap stores and they're all going to be the same, right? And this person has no relevant experience, but he bleeds the company. And he really, really understands the customers. And if I were going to take a chance on anybody, I'd take a chance on him. But you have to tell him.
Right.
Right. You have to say, you aren't actually qualified.
Right.
And you're going to need a lot of help,
right?
Because there's a lot of things you don't know. But let's give it a try, right?
Yeah.
Let's both give it a try and see. So that's the other part. I think that's important to kind of maybe leave people with, which is it's a two-way street. Just because you want it doesn't mean it's necessary. Just because you think you're ready doesn't mean you are. Right. And just because you have a role and a warm body in front of you doesn't mean that warm body is the right person. Right. And I know because you're doing so much work with founders now that there becomes this blinders at one point where you can only promote from within. Right. Like no one else will ever understand what we're doing. And, and then there's the like, yeah, well, you can't scale with the same 20 people. I
literally just had that conversation.
So I think that since we did spend the last hour on career pathing.
Yeah. It's, every topic that you're like poo-pooing, you always are the one that likes to talk about it at the end of the day. You're like, I love it. And you were like, I don't want to talk about careers and I don't, and then here you are blabbing away.
Fine.
Blabbing away.
We were talking about
it.
We were talking about career paths. We were talking about career journeys.
Career journeys. You know what? I'm so glad that I got to have my career journey with you.
Me too, you. Yeah.
I don't know. I wouldn't be who I am today, Patty McCord.
Yeah. It's a good thing. I just saw a woman who is really influential for me in my career.
Who is that?
And a woman named Nancy Hauge, and she hired me at Sun.
Uh-huh.
I'll leave you, the story is really good. So I had interviewed her for a job at the company that I was at. And
At Pure?
no, this was at Seagate, way
Seagate.
back
Okay,
when.
okay.
Right. Okay. So when I went to give her the offer, she said, actually, I don't like your company very much, and your HR team is really pretty mediocre. And I kind of wanted to live in Monterey, so that's why I interviewed. And so, thank you for the offer, but I don't want the job, but I want you. And I was like, wait, what? And she's like, I think you're great. I think you should work for me someday. And I was like, okay, whatever. And she called me for like every 6 months for a couple of years. And eventually I was mad about something and I went to work for her. And the first one-on-one we had, she said, I came in with my notepad, and I was ready to have my first meeting with my new boss. And she said, okay, write this down. You ready? Got your pen ready? I'm your safety net. Fall.
Oh, that's so cool. I don't think you ever told me that story.
Isn't that a great story? I
Yeah.
love her. And she did. I mean, she would, if she thought that I wasn't being brave enough, she'd just push me off the cliff. I'm like, no. She's like, that's okay. I'll be at the bottom.
Yeah, you never said those words to me, but I knew I had it. But you definitely pushed me off the cliff.
Yeah, no,
the
but
time.
that was, I learned that from her. And it was like, if you have really competent people and you have really hard problems to solve, then just throw them at it. And really great people they'll step
You
up.
taught me how to do that, and I did it with my team. And they're like, I can't. I'm like, yeah, you can.
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
You can do
And
it.
if you don't, the world won't end.
Yeah. You know what my mama says? Can't, never could.
Can't, never could, honey. I know that. All righty then. Well, good show.
Good show. Love ya.
Love you too. Thanks for listening to TruthWorks. This episode was produced by Megan Hayward. Thank you to Kathleen Speckert and the whole Edit Audio team.